The Western Philosophy by Will Durant. Chapter 2, Section 7. Ethics and the Nature of Happiness. And yet, as Aristotle developed, and a young man crowded about him to be taught and formed, more and more his mind turned from the details of science to the large and the bigger problems of conduct and character. It came to him more clearly that, above all questions of the physical world, there loomed the question of questions. What is the best life? What is life's supreme good? What is virtue? How shall we find happiness and fulfillment? He is realistically simple in his ethics. His scientific training keeps him from the preachment of superhuman ideals and empty counsels of perfection. In Aristotle says Santayana, the conception of human nature is perfectly sound. Every idea has a natural basis, and everything natural has an ideal development. Aristotle begins by frankly recognizing that the aim of life is not goodness for its own sake, but happiness. For we choose happiness for itself and never with a view to anything further, whereas we choose honor, pleasure, intellect, because we believe that through them we shall be made happy. But he realizes that to call happiness the supreme good is a mere truism. What is wanted is some clear account of the nature of happiness, and the way to it he hopes to find this way by asking wherein man differs from other beings, and by presuming that man's happiness will lie in the full functioning of this specifically human quality. Now, the peculiar excellence of man is his power of thought. It is by this that he surpasses and rules all other forms of life, and as the growth of this faculty has given him his supremacy, so we may presume its development will give him fulfillment and happiness. The chief condition of happiness, then, barring certain physical prerequisites, is the life of reason, the specific glory and power of man. Virtue, or rather excellence, will depend on clear judgment, self-control, symmetry of desire, artistry of means. It is not the possession of the simple man, nor the gift of innocent intent, but the achievement of experience in the fully developed man. Yet there is a road to it, a guide to excellence, which may save many detours and delays. It is the middle way, the golden mean. The qualities of character can be arranged in triads, in each of which the first and the last qualities will be extremes and vices, and the middle quality of virtue or an excellence. So between cowardice and rashness is courage. Between stinginess and extravagance is liberality. Between sloth and greed is ambition. Between humility and pride is modesty. Between secrecy and loquacity, honesty. Between moroseness and buffoonery, good humor. Between quarrelsomeness and flattery, friendship. Between Hamlet's indecisiveness and Quixote's impulsiveness is self-control, right? Then in ethics or conduct is not different from right in mathematics or engineering. It means correct fit, what works best to the best result. The golden mean, however, is not like the mathematical mean, an exact average of two precisely calculable extremes. It fluctuates with the collateral circumstances of each situation and discovers itself only to mature and flexible reason. Excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but we rather have these because we have acted rightly. These virtues are formed in man by his doing the actions. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. The good of man is a working of the soul in the way of excellence in a complete life. For us it is not one swallow or one fine day that makes a spring, so it is not one day or a short time that makes a man blessed and happy. Youth is the age of extremes. If the young commit a fault, it is always on the side of excess and exaggeration. The great difficulty of youth and of many of youth's elders is to get out of one extreme without falling into its opposite. For one extreme easily passes into the other, whether through overcorrection of elsewise insincerity doth protest too much, and humility hovers on the precipice of conceit. Those who are consciously at one extreme will give the name of virtue not to the mean, but to the opposite extreme. Sometimes this is well, for if we are conscious of erring in one extreme, we should aim at the other, and so we may reach the middle position, as men do in straightening bent timber, but unconscious extremists look upon the golden mean as the greatest vice. They expel towards each other the man in the middle position. The brave man is called rash by the coward, and the coward by the rash man, and in other cases accordingly. So in modern politics, liberal is called conservative, and radical by the radical, and the conservative. It is obviously that this doctrine of the mean is the formulation of a characteristic attitude which appears in almost every system of Greek philosophy. Plato had it in mind when he called the virtue harmonious action. Socrates, when he identified the virtue with knowledge. This seven wise men had established the tradition by engraving on the temple of Apollo at Delphi the motto, Maiden Argand, nothing in excess. Perhaps, as Nietzsche claims, all these were attempts of the Greeks to check their own violence and impulsiveness of character. More truly, they reflected the Greek feeling that passions are not of themselves vices, but the raw material of both vice and virtue, according as they functioned in excess and disproportion, or in measure and harmony. But the golden mean, says our matter of fact philosopher, is not all of the secret of happiness. We must have, too, a fair degree of worldly goods. Poverty makes one stingy and grasping, while possessions give one that freedom from care and greed, which is the source of aristocratic ease and charm. The noblest of these external aids to happiness is friendship. Indeed, friendship is more necessary to the happy than to the unhappy, for happiness is multiplied by being shared. It is more important than justice. For when men are friends, justice is unnecessary. But when men are just, friendship is still a boon. A friend is one soul in two bodies. Yet, friendship implies few friends rather than many. He who has many friends has no friend, and to be a friend to many people in the way of perfect friendship is impossible. Fine friendship requires duration rather than fitful intensity, and this implies stability of character. It is to altered character that we must attribute the dissolving kaleidoscope of friendship. And friendship requires equality, for gratitude gives it, at best, a slippery basis. Benefactors are commonly held to have more friendship for the objects of their kindness than this for them. The account of the matter which satisfies most persons is that the one are debtors and the others creditors, and that the debtors wish their creditors out of the way, while the creditors are anxious that their debtors should be preserved. Aristotle rejects this interpretation. He prefers to believe that the greater tenderness of the benefactor is to be explained on the analogy of the artist's affection for his work, or the mother's for her child. We love that which we have made. And yet, though external goods and relationships are necessary to happiness, its essence remains within us, in rounded knowledge and clarity of soul. Surely sense pleasure is not the way. That road is a circle, as Socrates phrased the coarser Epicurean idea. We scratch that we may itch, and itch that we may scratch. Nor can a political career be the way, for therein we walk subject to the whims of the people, and nothing is so fickle as the crowd. No, happiness must be a pleasure of the mind, and we may trust it only when it comes from the pursuit or the capture of truth. The operation of the intellect aims at no end beyond itself, and finds in itself the pleasure which stimulates it to further operation. And since the attributes of self-sufficiency, unweariedness, and capacity for rest plainly belong to this occupation, in it must lie perfect happiness. Aristotle's ideal man, however, is no mere metaphysician. He does not expose himself needlessly to danger, since there are few things for which he cares sufficiently, but he is willing in great crisis to give even his life, knowing that under certain conditions it is not worth while to live. He is of a disposition to do man's service, though he is ashamed to have a service done to him. To confer a kindness is a man of superiority. To receive one is a mark of subordination. He does not take part in public displays. He is open in his dislikes and preferences. He talks and acts frankly because of his contempt for men and things. He is never fired with admiration, since there is nothing great in his eyes. He cannot live in complaisance with others except it be a friend. Complaisance is the characteristic of a slave. He never feels malice and always forgets and passes over injuries. He is not fond of talking. It is no concern of his that he should be praised or that others should be blamed. He does not speak evil of others, even of his enemies, unless it be to themselves. His carriage is sedate, his voice deep, his speech measured. He is not given to hurry, for he is concerned about only a few things. He is not prone to vehemence, for he thinks nothing very important. A shrill voice and hasty steps come to a man through care. He bears the accidents of life with dignity and grace, making the best of his circumstances, like a skillful general who marshals his limited forces with all the strategy of war. He is his own best friend and takes delight in privacy, whereas the man of no virtue or ability is his own worst enemy and is afraid of solitude. Such is the Superman of Aristotle. The section is over.